This is SSN
Story Studio Network.
Hi, I'm Dean Gation, and this is the Powerful Connections podcast. For over 40 years, I've been involved in planning and building high-voltage projects. My company, DGG5 Advising, is the opportunity maker you need for your energy and construction projects. My guests and I are going to share our experiences and how we have brought projects to successful completion. Today, we're going to discuss risk management. It encompasses so much. We're going to talk about sophistication of risk review and risk management. My guest today is Guy Jolicoeur, Managing Director, NFP Canada. He shares an equal amount of time between the Toronto and Sudbury offices. His role within the technical risks and construction infrastructure team has allowed him to share his knowledge on a variety of operations and construction projects throughout Canada and the U.S. He is a leading expert in many sectors, and to me, he truly is a subject matter expert. Guy, give us a little bit about yourself for our listeners.
Well, first off, Dean, it is definitely a pleasure to talk about a subject that is near and dear to my heart. It is an environment in which I have been grateful and working in for the last 4+ decades. I started at a very young age. I've had the pleasure of providing guidance and services to a number of industries, including pulp and paper, mining, heavy industrial manufacturing, as well as construction infrastructure across Canada and the U.S. The overall approach that NFP takes on behalf of their clients across not only North America, but the globe as well, is predominantly focused on risk control solutions that drive efficiencies, profitability for the client, but as well make either a project or a particular operation viewed by insurers as best of class.
Thanks very much, Guy. What do you do in your spare time? Risk management is a mindset and a practice to review, identify, and evaluate risk. There are many methods that companies incorporate to do this. The outcome is evaluating risk, mitigating risk, and the tools used for protecting from loss. Insurance is one of those tools utilized. Please remind us of how you view risk and some of the tools organizations can use to protect themselves.
Great question. There's a lot of moving parts in that particular question. Let me start off with there is a growing significance to risk management within organizations, large and small. COVID in the last 3 years has just really pushed that along by virtue of a number of challenges that operations have had and contractors have had in different segments. What we had seen previous to COVID was if we focus on construction more specifically, is that there was definitely a diligence to contractors' approach on developing risk registers to assist them in the whole risk management process, but as well through different steps from establishing certain benchmarks of go, no go on certain projects, and as well how to successfully deliver a project on time, on budget, without any injury lost time through that process. As insurers, as we are representing the client for their placement of insurance coverage within the insurance market, we also take the approach of bringing out from discussions with our clients their best practices and what makes their operations at the forefront of managing risk and making them as attractive as possible to as many insurers so that the contractor or the owner may have the widest breadth of coverage available, as well as the highest number of insurers that may have an interest in providing coverage for a project.
Project success is based on performance. And, the old statement of if you fail to plan, your plan will fail. And we've talked about this before. Over the years, I've created a lot of processes and tools for risk assessment and hazard recognition and risk registries that identify the extent of the risk and frequency along with methods to reduce or eliminate. Last episode, Mike Doherty and I spoke about residual risk from a health and safety point of view, and we got into the root cause analysis. We got into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in a SWOT diagram. And in creating budgets and schedules for scope of work, project management is key to this. So review with us your view on what good project management is.
Well, there's a number of steps that we have seen successful contractors utilize in ensuring themselves of a good experience with an owner through the project's life cycle. And it requires a heightened operational vigilance. And what does that mean? It's a combination of written procedures and procedures within a particular enterprise project management platform. Some of these procedures might need to be tightened, and adherence to the tightening of practices emphasized to staff through that whole project delivery. And there are a number of operational practice areas that all construction stakeholders should be constantly reviewing to ensure they remain best of class, not just within the market that they are delivering their products to and their services to, but as well from our perspective with the insurers as well. Once we get past the go and no-go assessment, there are a number of steps that would be reflective of best practices of what we've seen the most successful enterprises utilize. In no particular order, that will be pre-qualification, award practices, performance security, and the QA/QC program that the main contractor as well as the subs would adhere to through the life cycle of the project. Key to this, and I'll focus on one particular area, is the pre-qualification of contractor or subcontractors. And in the pre-award vetting process, that includes an assessment of both the quantity and quality of the labor forces needed to complete the scope of work as reflected in the master schedule that is developed. In addressing a subcontractor's ability to deliver on their obligation in the area that they are going to perform on behalf of the main contractor. This includes a review of past performance, work in progress, compared to an annual review comparison in-person meetings with key stakeholders to really vet whether they can deliver on their obligations. So there are a number of key elements that we are seeing being addressed within risk registers and risk reviews that contractors are adhering to insofar as developing that overall risk management approach of go or no go on a particular project.
The tools are very good, and the on time, on budget item is a big one and a neat mindset. I'm going to jump to another topic that you and I have talked about previously, and that's sophistication. The many projects I've been involved in are complicated. It requires qualified people, certified equipment, certified processes. There's many items or tools of software, scheduling, and project review required to be involved in the outcome of a sophisticated project organizing, or systems and reporting are there. But what do you feel sophistication means from your point of view as an insurer?
On the larger projects, and what we've seen just on a side note, is a significant increase in the dollar value associated with projects over the last 3-4 years. The timeline for completing projects has expanded by virtue of complexity as well as some of the challenges that contractors and owners have in projects, be it availability of labor or availability of materials, and the supply chain management stresses that one would find in some of these more complex projects. The sophistication that I'm referring to as we're going through the point of developing a risk assessment on a given project is one where it is underlined by a very holistic approach to assessing what are the risks or impediments in delivering that project on time and on budget. And some of the contractors that we have worked with over time have really developed a high level of sophistication in addressing every possible impediment that goes beyond what we would normally look at from an insurer risk standpoint, which is, let's say, physical damage or damage to neighboring properties. They will look at every element that could have an impact. Could be from working within an environment where there is a pending contract renewal of a union agreement. It could be a change in municipal bylaws or provincial regulations that may have an influence on the project. It could be geopolitical issues that have come into play that have an impact. And at least identifying that as a risk, measuring what that means to the project, and how, to the extent they can, how can they manage those exposures, and as well is there a way to transfer the risk by virtue of buying insurance coverage for that particular exposure and quantifying what that represents and its weight on their pricing of a particular project.
Like I said, these things get complicated. The item next is pre-project items. And your description over the years has been robust pre-project. So the project is only as successful as its planning. And the pre-project planning, reviews, and identification of risk and mitigation. We've discussed numerous times what this really means, the robust pre-project planning. Talk to our listeners a little bit about what this term means and what it entails.
Well, the issue with robust planning all starts with a well-drafted scope of work from the owner. The projects where we have seen significant positive results on, insofar as a successful project delivery with few hiccups, has been really underpinned by a quality scope of work, a collaborative relationship between the owner and the constructor, and as well it's surrounding yourself with quality firms, quality individuals who are subject matters in their own ways. It could be geotechnical, it could be production machinery, high voltage electrical, concrete, depending on the profile of the risk. But the collaborative approach between all stakeholders is a key and critical component to having a successful project. And that collaborative approach, one in which there is transparency between the parties so that they are all focused on that final outcome, that final output, that successful delivery of that project. When there is that mindset within that group of professionals, you will have a great outcome.
We've seen it a lot in the high voltage world where you have to make adjustments as you go, but they could be weather driven, they could be permit driven, they could be access, landowner issues, whatever it is. But that team approach, that collaboration, the relationships that are created, you see that team operating over and over and over again, and you see the outcomes getting better and better. You want to be part of that. The
yes.
teams where the outcomes are struggling all the time are difficult. So this gets us into discipline. And over the years, you've reminded me of the discipline of risk management. What is the approach you look for in organizations that demonstrates their planned approach to risk management? What do you look for?
It starts with the commitment and buy-in from ownership management, in that all of the steps, every protocol that they have in place, that it's not just something written on paper or an email once a month. It's beyond that. It is something that we notice quite quickly that is part of the DNA of all of the employees within the organization. And then we delve into what those particular procedures are, be it to protect property or their approach on risk control from the standpoint of contract review, as well as the physical risk control, as well as the human element, which is predominantly where you'll see it translated in the behavior of individuals throughout their daily tasks.
So you get to observe a company and get a good working relationship with them. What do you see when you get inside that organization? What advice do you provide your customers when you get entrenched in what they're doing? How do you get them to that next level of good to great, that best in class? What advice do you give your customers?
We have, in fact, onboarded an individual within our firm that would be much more adept at explaining that granular, important element of a good risk management practice, that day-to-day living of working within that value within the company. Just a little bit of background on the individual comes from the contractor world, the underwriter world, as well as the brokerage industry. The skill set that's brought to the table to assist the client to get to the next level of being viewed as best of class is one where there should be that audit procedure reviewing the operational elements of a particular contractor, and then using this individual's experience to leverage what they're already doing to get to the next level.
So what do those services and tools look like that NFP brings to a customer to assist with risk management?
NFP's approach, as I indicated earlier, is one in which it's a risk control driven solution. From the perspective of what are some of the tools that we bring to the table, we have a very unique approach in that we have a emphasis on researching, studying, and recommending in different areas tools that are available within the Internet of Things, IoT. And we have spent significant capital in identifying tools that would assist owners and contractors through that whole successful path of delivering a project on time and on budget, but also utilizing that information that the client is adopting, let's say, within the excavation sensor technology that's readily available, which would monitor soil conditions, detect underground utilities, track movement of equipment in real time, which creates a safer environment and optimizes equipment usage. That particular tool, as an example, and there are different providers within that bucket, there is a direct correlation to a successful delivery of a project and a reduction of losses. So as we represent the contractor in the insurance marketplace, we flush those tools out that the client may be utilizing or should be utilizing, where we would recommend the adoption of some of this technology to help them mitigate risk. And they will win, the owner will win, and the insurers have finally realized they will win as well.
These are, the success stories we want to talk about and hear about, because it's the advice that we want to get to people to be able to call us and contact us and talk about. So one of the things we did over the years in all the projection jobs was I got involved in, they were very specialized items or areas that we had to get subcontractor help, whatever it is. Could be right-of-way clearing, surveying. We talked about LiDAR, geotech, engineering specifically to stuff. These relationships become very, very important. There is risk in hiring new organizations or making sure the ones you rely on are maintaining their excellent performance. And subcontractor pre-qualification is a must for me, for any organization, to ensure that you are not taking on additional risk or introducing unwanted issues. So we've had great process for identifying good help, collecting regular information, corporate details, WSIB records and information, as well as health and safety, quality, and environmental management. We would get training records, vehicle and equipment records, management plans, project planning specific to the scope of work, but review what you look for in subcontractor pre-qualification, from whether you're representing the contractor or you're representing that subcontractor. What are you looking for in subcontractor pre-qualification?
So on this one, Dean, this is where we have this specialist in what we refer to as, and what the industry refers to as, subcontractor default insurance.
Okay.
And that is more focused on the larger contractors that have a significant amount of subcontractors. And it provides a mechanism for them to manage disputes in a more expeditious fashion than you would normally through the use of a traditional surety product. In order to have that subcontractor default insurance, where there is a very limited insurance market, there's a specific process that must be adhered to, which is the review of, let's say, the general's approach on pre-qual of subs. A very lengthy list, and a mechanism by which there is verification of the process of qualifying the subs that are utilized on the given projects that a particular contractor would be focused on. That is a very specialized area insofar as a product offering and a management of subcontractors. But if we put that aside for a moment, and we go back to from a macro perspective, the managing of subcontractors as a larger subject, it's not only, let's say it's an electrical contractor. Again, we'll focus on electrical, where we're simply asking for workers' comp and verification that they have the ability to provide financial guarantee through the issuance of surety product. It goes beyond that, in that there has to be a review, or there should be a review, to make sure that the subcontractors that are being entertained for a particular project adhere to a similar standard to which the contractor has for both health and safety in their approach to conducting the work on a given project. And at certain sites, as you know personally over the years, there are certain sites that require significantly more security training and indoctrination to how to work within a particular site. Power plants, refineries, pulp and paper, they all have their unique exposures that a selected sub would need to have proper indoctrination, training, but as well adherence to a series of standards that must be adhered to in order to be on site. So as a contractor, it's not following cheapest price. It's also following who can work within the parameters of a safe work site that will create a good environment in order to complete the project on time without employer injury.
Yeah, the great projects that we've been on have a published evaluation process, and it steers you towards making sure you have the whole picture, and price is never the biggest evaluator. It's health and safety, it's process, it's corporate issues, it's records, it's Indigenous engagement, it's all of it becomes part of evaluation. And those are the projects we wanted to be part of, because we knew the selection of people would get less and less as the criteria for evaluation went up. In all of these things, is there an approach for owners that they should make sure are happening when they're just the owner? They're not the general contractor. They're not the subcontractors. They're not the major equipment suppliers. Are there things you recommend to owners to make sure that are happening?
There are a number of different project delivery models, as you're aware of. And one of the ones that we see that drives the most success is the integrated design project model, involving the design team, the owner, the contractor, and other key stakeholders working side by side. We find that there is a increased level of success and fewer surprises through the process, in that everyone is working in the same direction, arm in arm, for a successful delivery of a given project. Versus the other end of the spectrum, which could be a design build, and things are done more in isolation, and there are different parties that are not necessarily arm in arm from day one of the project.
We get involved over the years in a lot of things, and some of the most exciting projects we got into was being that collaborative advisor, the constructability review person from day one for the owner, and negotiating that deal as the scope got developed. But it de-risked the project, it dealt with procurement, and it got down to a specific scope of time and effort, which reduced the cost, reduced the time. So this integrated project delivery has definitely gotten onto the world, especially with these massive projects and complicated projects. It's definitely hit the scene. The smaller items where the owners are involved, I think we're going to see a lot more of identifying services and securing those services with contractors they like versus tendering. And I think that'll help do that a lot.
You've just touched on a good point. One of the other observations that we've seen is owners realizing the limited pool of contractors on these larger projects are being more progressive by, as much as they can, de-risking some of the elements of projects. Could be as within the context of wet or dry utilities, or on permitting, regardless of the element, where they can assist in creating, again, a more collaborative environment that is a win-win situation for all parties. So de-risking is something that is becoming more prevalent.
We see it a lot in the new approach that the provincial utilities taking in this early contractor involvement process, and it's just de-risking and reducing cost and time and effort. And it's, I believe, the approach we've done for years. They've just identified it with a name now, and it's become the norm, which is nice to see. So tell me a little bit about some of the great success stories that you want to identify or show off on how NFP Canada or Guy Jolicoeur makes a difference.
As I've mentioned a number of times during this conversation, we're a risk control driven organization. And you would have heard this in other conversations on other projects, in that our approach within, let's say, the manufacturing sector, where there is a long life cycle to the facility that's being erected and the production equipment that's being put in place, is our ability to provide meaningful risk control advice at the moment that pen is on paper, that will have an impact not just within the risks associated with the erection of a particular facility, but as well have a positive impact on operational costs through the life cycle of that project. And we have had a number of instances over the years where our involvement has, at the onset, when they have pen to paper and are about to approach final design, that we can add value in what is being done on similar facilities based on our life experiences, and as well refer to any NFPA or FM standards that may bring significant value and, in fact, be almost required by a number of key insurers in order to be able to ensure that facility, once it's has achieved commercial and use status. So it's a unique approach where we're covering and providing advice from cradle to grave. And I'd say that is one of the unique value propositions that NFP's team brings to the table.
Thanks very much. We're going to have a really cool episode. 2 episodes from now, we're talking with the supply group and one of the transformer manufacturers, and you've just touched on some of the issues that I know we're going to get into there. Guy, thank you for joining me today and bringing such great insight into the risk management and risk review items people have to understand and deal with. In my next episode, we're going to discuss execution of work with Brendan Fenton, VP Power North Utility Contractors, Inc. Thanks very much. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of Powerful Connections. Get in touch with me on my website at dgg5advising.com or find me on LinkedIn at Dean G. Gation. See you on the next episode.